So good afternoon, everyone. So today we are honored to have Emanuel who will share the experience of Ushahidi and the BRCK, BRCK. I don't know how many of you know about these two innovations. They have been internationally recognized. He will tell us why and his personal experience. So feel free to ask any question, give feedback.
All right, thanks so much. So hi everyone. I guess there's no need to repeat my name because it's so everyone said. Yes, so I work for BRCK. I'm a software engineer, and actually this is my alma mater. So I used to be at the School of Computing about 7 years ago. So class of 7. And it's great to be here, at least seeing this. Before it was just one building with a lot of free space on this other end. So it's good to see that it's all been built up. All right. So I've been a software developer, software engineer for the last, say, 8 years. So that's been my forte. I have experience just spanning from academia, social enterprise, and entrepreneurship. So at the moment, I'm the director of cloud services at BRCK. So what that means is I take care of the cloud infrastructure, the platform that is used for monitoring all the devices that we have out in the field, or rather in the hands of users, and the general communication infrastructure between those devices and the cloud, so to provide a seamless user experience to the users. Prior to that, I was at Ushahidi for about 4 years. So when BRCK spun out of Ushahidi, myself and the CEO transitioned to work on BRCK full time. So at Ushahidi, I was also a software engineer. I've been working on open source projects at least for the last 6 years. So lots of moving parts around open source, whether it's the kind of licensing you use, how do you build a community, and so on and so forth. Also a bit of experience in building enterprise systems, so academic management systems and financial systems for educational institutions such as these. So in a nutshell, that's been my professional life. So I'll be honest, I didn't have anything planned in terms of these are going to be my talking points. So I'm hoping we can make it more interactive. I actually have a brick with me. So for those of you who've never seen a brick or never got to interact with it, today's the day to get to see it. So how many of us know about BRCK or heard about it? Well, for the most part, at least you can see it on my T-shirt. Even if, at least you probably don't have as much of an excuse. And I can see other than myself and Faris, everyone else doesn't need assistance to see in terms of spectacles. So in a nutshell, the BRCK is an internet router for people and things. So basically, we are designing for people who are the extreme edge of the network, where connectivity is very spotty, and all they just want to do is get connected to the internet. They don't need to worry about having to configure a router and knowing all this very complex language that's in the networking domain. So it gives you redundant connectivity. What that means is that there's more than one way to get connected to the internet. So there's a 3G SIM, there's an Ethernet, which is a cable, or Wi-Fi bridging mode. So in a place such as this, you can use it in Wi-Fi bridging mode, which means you use a BRCK to connect to the C4D wireless network, and then the BRCK mediates your connection out to the internet. So you just connect to the BRCK connects to this network, and then you're able to use the internet. It comes with an 8-hour battery. As you all know, we have challenges with power supply around here. So every once in a while, we'll experience a power outage, and then the lights come back on, they come surging, and either the surge protector just doesn't work, so your equipment gets fried. So it also has inbuilt surge protection up to 400 volts. So really, it's about engineering and designing from the dust, being informed by this environment, the challenges that we face, everyday challenges that we face in this environment, whether it's internet connectivity, whether it's reliability of the power distribution system. For the things part of the narrative, or the story is, it's a device that you can actually use for monitoring things or devices. So if you're for example, a classic use case is a water quality sensor. So traditionally what happens is for projects that have a monitoring component, once you have budget, you buy a big white Land Rover and you go to the field, collect the data, maybe on a on some worksheets, come back to the back office and start feeding in the system. But it's 2014. We've had things land on a comet. We've put a man on the moon. So there's ways to automate these things. So using Arduino, if you're familiar with Arduino, you can use some Arduino shields to collect, whether it's weather station data or water quality data, and then you use the BRCK as your gateway to the internet to transmit that data back to your back office system. So that's basically what BRCK is in a nutshell. So I guess at this point, I'm curious, just to find out, what questions you have. Pick, anything that you want to ask, and also to pick your interest and learn from you as well. So don't look at me as a person with all the information. When people get quiet, they get very worried. So I guess at this point, I'm open to questions or some kind of discussion. Yeah.
So the design also open source. Where we found
right. Okay. So one of the things, the ethos of BRCK as well is trying to build a community of makers, of hackers. So from that, there's a part of the BRCK that's actually open. So the schematics, for example, for the GPIO breakout board, the one that latches at the bottom of the BRCK, that you can use for building your own shields, those schematics are open, and also the BRCK board. So the BRCK actually has two boards. There's a Wi-Fi radio, and there's one that controls the power and state of the BRCK, the on-off status. So it has something called an AVR, which is basically it allows you to program a board. So it is a master and a slave. So the master is what controls the state of charge, how fast the BRCK is charging, when you switch it on and off. Then the slave AVR, that's what actually you can use to start tapping into all these other things that you're attaching to the BRCK. So in a nutshell, yes. So the entire stack is not open source, but a good part of it is. Yeah.
So does it mean this is going to be the architecture?
Yeah.
Because I know some OS.
Yes. So the two components of the stack, at least on the. All right. So there's So two components to the stack. So there's the firmware, and there's the operating system. So this is actually a Linux. It's a Linux-based OS. So firmware is firmware, just written in C. Yeah. So this one you basically you write once. Yeah. It's rewritable. Of course, you can reprogram it every so often. But once the BRCK is in the hands of the user, then this part never changes. For it to change, it either has to go back to the assembly facility, or it comes to office. You open it up, and then you can change the firmware. The OS, this one you can write as many times as you want. So this one you can update over the air. So via your BRCK Cloud profile, you can see, or rather via the BRCK Cloud platform, we can send operating system updates to the BRCK. So this part is what actually controls, all the connectivity, internet connectivity, and then messaging between the brick, the cloud, and all the other functions that the brick can perform, whether it's running a local application off the brick or exposing some kind of services that give it enhanced capabilities. So in a sense, that's the structure of or that's makeup of the software that runs on the device.
Maybe one of the last question.
Okay.
What's the cloud like? What modules, like the location of the gate?
So we do understand various concerns, whether it's especially privacy concerns. So the firmware part of the brick is actually what sends something called the SOC, or the state of charge. Yeah. So the battery level of the brick and the state whether it's charging or not. So that's primarily the information that gets sent. And then every now and then when for example some configuration change take place on the brick, so synchronizing that with whatever is stored in the cloud. So that could mean if your brick is now for example it's connected to a cable and gets a new IP address, so synchronizing that information. So it's and that is actually just private to you. Yeah, and all the communication between the brick and the cloud is encrypted. So it's not in plain text.
When my brick gets lost, I can be able to track it?
At this point, no, because we don't have any location capabilities on the brick, or even a GPS, for example. But so one of the things you could actually do is there's some USB dongles, very small ones that actually are GPS modules, and the operating system is actually compatible with those. So if you wanted something you could stick on your brick, and should it get lost, you can actually track where it is. There's a lot more capability that we're also looking at adding. So cases such as those. So how can you lock down your brick and put it in a mode that it can't get out of? So like a deep sleep mode. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
How long do you think to develop?
So Break actually just started off as an idea. What if we had a box that you could just switch on and it gives you internet, and it was something very nebulous, something not concrete. So for the most part, it was a skunkworks project within Ushahidi. So we had a few prototypes of how it would look like. It was just a side project, and then in the middle of last year, we decided, let's raise some money for this project and see what happens. So we had a Kickstarter campaign to prove viability of that product or of that idea, and two, also to get a little bit of money to actually prototype it and at least have a proof of concept. So Kickstarter in for a couple of weeks. Our target was $172,000. So we managed to hit that target. So what that meant for us is that, look, this is something that actually has legs, because sometimes you need that kind of validation. So that, in a way, gave us some level of validation that we could actually be onto something. After that, we went into prototyping, but in a hardware venture, you realize that even with that amount of money, it may sound like a lot, especially here, simply because of exchange rate business. Yeah. But it runs out pretty quickly, because now you need expertise, or you need people who understand RF engineering. You need an electrical engineer. You need someone who understands protocol stuff, with the operating system. So after that, it became clear that for us to actually pursue this into a product, something in the hands of people, it was crucial for us to actually spin out as an independent organization. So Break spun out of Ushahidi to become its own company that is for profit. So Ushahidi is a non-profit organization. But Break is actually a for-profit enterprise. So, and what that meant is we needed a lot more financial assistance. So in the form of equity. So we went into a seed round. So in a seed round, it's basically you use something called convertible. Yeah. So mostly in the seed round, it's like you're fundraising, but from a friends and family kind of perspective. So we raised $1.2 million, which that closed at the end of February. So between November and February, mostly was actually fundraising. In the meantime, also trying to refine the idea, building in all this other stopgaps such as search protection, and continuously rethinking the idea and seeing what else can be different from networking. I mean, what else can we do differently that's not that other people who have been in networking are not doing at the moment. Over and above, designing a product for emerging markets or people that are at the edge of the network. So that was the fundraising bit. So in terms of the actual building work, this began in March. So between March and June, from March to June, so this is where a lot of the development took place. So of course this meant the aspects of prototyping. And prototyping in this sense meant we get some injection molds. So these are basically samples for the case, how they look like. We do some tests whether we can break them. Are they weather resistant? So this is for the case. And there's the PCB, which is a printed circuit board. So the board itself, the programmable board, and then of course there's the actual development work. Software development work. So, making customization to the operating system, building the brick cloud, getting the two talking, that is the cloud and the actual device. So, from the beginning of March to the end of June, so you can do the math. It's about 4 months. And we launched on July 9th. So July 9th, we opened the doors. We had a launch in Site Center. Together with one of our partners, Sandstorm, someone who's been very supportive. And we started shipping. So in July, we did start putting it in the hands of users. After about 2 or 3 false starts. So the initial launch date was actually scheduled for 15th of November, but then we didn't have enough capital to make that a reality. We pushed it to mid-January. We still didn't have enough capital to push through. And all this while we have people that have pledged money to you, they're waiting for their device, there are delays, things that are outside of our control. So a big part of the narrative has also been users who are very understanding, or backers who are very understanding and supportive at the same time. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just wondering, where did the idea was from? What was the inspiration?
As I said, so our CEO Eric was also a co-founder of Ushahidi. So he was on his way back from a trip, and he just started thinking around the concept. What if there was just a device that you just switch on and it gives you internet access, without any hassle? So based on that, there was something that was just very nebulous. It wasn't very refined, but it was just, you have an idea of a concept. It's just somewhere in your head marinating or taking shape. So he came back, shared with the team. We had a small team of people from Ushahidi, try and work on the concept and define it a bit, what it would look like, what kind of a device it would be, what capabilities would it offer, and then work on it as a side project. So that's the origin of the idea. And then when after meeting with the other 2 co-founders, that's Reg and Philip, when you have other people helping in a venture, you start having external ideas other than just ideas that come from you alone. So the involvement also helps define the idea in terms of other than just being an internet router. What are the other things that what other things you need to provide?
And what has been the reception?
I mean, so far the reception actually has been great. We've had a couple of challenges. One is, having waited out for having sort of been behind schedule for about 6 months. So of course, there's that urge, there's that need, or just desire to get it out of the door. Whether it's rugged or it's half baked, or it's not to the desired spec that you may have wanted. So we actually push back on that a little bit, because the whole idea where we're coming from is just because you're engineering and designing from Kenya or from Africa as a whole, doesn't mean that your product can be as good as any that's coming from Europe or from the US in Silicon Valley, for that matter. So part of our belief, part of our ethos is that you can make an equally competitive product from just about anywhere, and specifically from here. So reception has been good. We've got some flack in some aspects because it's hardware. One thing you learn about hardware, or you've learned about hardware is forever in testing. It's never really complete. Even if you're not playing, it's never at 100%. It's just that they can't tell you that. The captain can't say, ladies and gentlemen, today the plane is at 90%, so just don't worry, but we'll make it. Just that they can't say that. Yeah. But hardware is forever in testing. You can only provide you can provide a reasonable degree of assurance on some things. Some things are completely outside of your control. And also being the first version, there are a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what people would use the brick for. So there's also the aspect of expectations. You can only manage them to a certain extent. A lot of things changed between the Kickstarter and the time we actually got to working. So aspects of the brand promise may have varied a bit. Some people actually thought it would still be not for profit, and there's some people who anything that's not for profit, they're really passionate about, they're going to give the money to it. When it becomes a profit-making venture, they get turned off by that. So they want back their money, and we've had those kind of people. They feel very betrayed. I thought this was going to be not for profit. It isn't about, it doesn't really be about capitalism and all these other things. Again, we also underestimated how complicated the mobile network operator space is. So whether it's, in this market, we're in a prepaid market. So if it's topping up your Safaricom, Airtel, or Orange line, you just buy a top-up voucher, you put in a quick dial code, and you're up and running. Most of our early adopters happen to be from the West, where things operate a bit differently. So you need to have a contract, and the same. If you get for those users that actually want to use the brick in 3G mode, you start finding out very weird activation requirements from different operators. So some you get a SIM that's been provisioned for voice only. So there's some for voice and text. There's some for voice, text, and data. There's some that are for data alone. So the fragmentation is really hard, and trying to walk through all that. And then there are also user experience issues in terms of the faster user experience that users have when they first get the device. So in a hardware venture, one of the things you need to think about is the unboxing experience. So when you get a new gadget, from the time when it gets delivered to you, when it's coming out of the box, how have things been arranged? Is it intuitive? Do you need to start turning it upside down to find out where the flaps are? Is the user manual comprehensive enough? Are the instructions clear and concise and sensitive, and that kind of thing? So we realized some gaps in the user experience. One is the aspect of feedback. With the hardware device, one of the things that is really crucial is feedback. So if a light is blinking, or it's if a light is pulsing or it's rotating, the user needs to know what's going on. So is there a visual cue or somewhere they can look to find out what's actually going on? So we realized that there's some things we may have sacrificed, rather we sacrificed, in the name of simplicity, but simplicity doesn't mean that it's simply it's short. You're using a shorter route to set up the device. So and the only way to find out some of these things is just to, you need to put these things in the hands of users. You can't sit in a lab somewhere and work out some of these things. You need to get feedback from users.
How many users?
So right now we have just 1,000 units. We're just about to push out to hit that 1,000 units mark, which is what we targeted for the first launch. So right now all our sales are online, but every now and then we do get we ship a few units to stock in the back office, and those when someone can go in and buy.
I'm just curious, what was your experience during the Kickstarter campaign? What would you advise? What would you advise on how to go about Kickstarter campaign?
Wow. This point, I'm going to put down these things. All right. So for the Kickstarter campaign, one is you need media attention. One is come up with a narrative and refine it. Run it through a few people. So this is the idea that you have. So what is it? How is it going to benefit someone? What is it that you're trying to offer me? With this thing that you want to push out, and why do you feel you need help? And with this money that we're pledging, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with that money? So that's the first step. So get that idea refined, and even by the time you're going into Kickstarter, have something that you already tried. Don't just wake up one day, have an idea, run it by a few people, and then go into Kickstarter. So there's that aspect of planning. It's always very important to have had a proof of concept, at least even if it's a prototype. That way, there's a frame of reference. You can show what the past work has been, and that becomes a point of reference for whatever challenges you've had or what it is that you need to move from point A to point B. Media attention as well is as much as you're having a Kickstarter campaign. So posting it there is not enough. You need to pass the word around. So publicity is key. We've been very fortunate to have people who are very good with publicity and over time. So your reputation counts. So if you're always not finishing jobs, then it becomes very difficult to vouch for you. But if you're credible and a good number of people can vouch for you, they know you're a trustworthy person, you can deliver, given your track record, that goes a long way. So again, your reputation is absolutely important. And then also the team that you're dealing. So, and it's probably even as you go around the startups, a crucial thing, especially with regards to getting funding, is your team. Faris is there, he's the CEO of Angani, he can vouch for that. If or he can prove me wrong in case I'm saying some ridiculous things. So your team really counts. So choose your co-founders very wisely. Yeah. So the people that you're going to tabling as the face of the company. Because that's every time there's an issue or every time something goes south, then that's what people relate to. You are the people that everyone else, your prospective customers, your supporters are going to relate to. So for me, those three takeaways are really have been enlightening and very crucial. It doesn't matter whether you have previous experience in that there money that will help in refining your idea? Whether it's linking you up with people that actually understand what you're trying to do. For people who can, that is funds have something called entrepreneur in residence. So someone actually who comes from the fund to sit with you and spend time with you, refining your idea and actually help you in building up whatever it is that you're working on. I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what.
No, be blunt with it, yes or no. It's good. It's good to say no sometimes.
That's what it's your view. That's what
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Then another one. I understand waste production. Is China?
So components come from all over the place. So design and engineering is done in Nairobi. So in terms of the schematics, how the device is going to look, what capabilities, but the actual components where they are manufactured. So some of them come from China, some of them come from the US. Assembly is in the US. Why in the US is one existing relationships with the facility which we're using at the moment, and then the tax regime here is not really investor friendly, or it's not friendly for manufacturing. So the cost of buy is ridiculously high. Another thing is also access to talent. So you start out a venture, you very much want to tap into people that are here, but on the other hand, educational institutions are letting us down because you have someone who's maybe a mechanical engineering student. Sorry if you're formerly a mechanical engineering student, but they have one car that's maybe a 1960 model that's always been what you use for practicals. It's one car. You're 300 students, maybe in first year. There are many others ahead of you. So some of those things actually working against us as an economy, as a country. So you start looking at so do you bring in people with this expertise that are willing to move here, i.e. expatriates, and then we get students from here, new graduates, fresh graduates, and then they become understudies. So this way, actually, there's transfer of skill. And then even forums like this, me coming here to just share my experience, I think is also, at least trying to do something to get people to participate. So never feel that just because you're in Kenya, you're not allowed to do certain to work on certain kinds of projects. Sometimes I get a sense of that. Yeah, you go somewhere whether it's a mock travel, and you tell people what you're doing and you're doing it from Nairobi. You get the idea, or you get the sense that you're not allowed to do that. The people who are supposed to do that, live above the equator. So yeah, you just put it in a more diplomatic language. Yeah. So don't cut yourself short.
Okay, I wanted to ask about the injection.
Yep.
Why did you do the injection?
So that's done in China. Yeah. So we use a contract manufacturer for that. So with contract manufacturing, what happens is these people have a design, and their work is actually to handle the quality assurance process, just to ensure that whatever is coming out of the factory meets your quality standards or your quality spec.
You design it here, except or you give them?
Yes, so we design it here and we send the design over to them, the design files to them. So in our team, there are also people there's someone who actually works on the design of that case.
My follow-up question was, do you think it's possible that we can have all these things here?
It is possible, but
How much do we need? What do we need? A miracle or what does the government need to do?
yeah.
But basically, what government needs to do, I don't know, just forget about it. Because even if we say we do the lawyers use it for another things, but by what can we do as people to make that happen?
With some of these things, decisions need to come from the top. Yeah. So in a manner of speaking, manna has to fall from heaven. Yeah. maybe not in those terms, but if once in a while, just take time and also don't focus too much on technology. Look at what's happening in the economy. For the most part, we're a net importer, so we don't export as much. Yeah. So being a net importer means that our imports are more than our exports. Yeah. And we don't make stuff. Yeah. So a lot of good coffee that's brewed in the West comes from Kenya, but you can't buy that same coffee here. If that doesn't strike you as something worrying, then maybe you need to. Yeah.
I have the Mr. Sun coffee experience of that. It's a brand of coffee from the industry. It's coffee from the valley. It's exported as green beans, roasted. You cannot buy it in Kenya. So for 3,000 shillings a kilo in South Africa, in the West, it is 3,000 a kilo. The farmer gets something that's 70 shillings. So they just roast it.
Yeah. So even for us, the many moving parts to the answer to your question is just the fact that if government says, okay, now we'll be doing manufacturing, there's also a culture shift that needs to happen. Ourselves, we need to learn how to fix things. We need to get into making things. Nowadays, you meet parents whose children cannot change a light bulb. They can't change. I'm sorry if you're in that group. We can't change a fuse. If an adapter blows, the first thing you check is the fuse. Simple things like those. So we are not into making things ourselves. So a lot of that also has to change. And educational institutions also have a role to play. Whatever you're learning in class has to be practical. So is there academia and industry collaboration going on? Not in a quid pro quo kind of context that industry is giving you money, but students, people in classrooms, do they get enough exposure in the real world stuff? Yeah, I mean, I'm a computer science graduate. I was fortunate that I sort of started early on in my craft while I was still in campus. But most of the people that either get to have as interns or as fresh graduates for hire, most of the time, you almost want to tell them, look, whatever you learned in your first class honors, kindly throw it in a trash bin, and I'll give you the matches to light it. So some of that stuff is not really. They don't get to see the practical application of some of these things. Just because someone doesn't come, they don't get to have that interaction. So yeah.
It's not the first time I asked the guys that when can I go to see all the startups that you guys have? But it's not I have startups. Then doing things like this.
Okay.
So after sometimes the free results in those batches. Up to now, there's no repository where you can find all those startups.
Okay.
So that you can become efficient.
Okay.
So concerning the story of SIM cards, where in Africa we had the foundation forum, and some guy came and said that you can buy SIM cards from this platform, and it will be really easy. They give you like the register SIM card for you at very low costs, and since the Kenyan SIM card has bundles.
Okay.
It's easy to buy bundles. If you could look at such a person, would that be a great start?
I mean, on the first thing about the list of startups that have come up with that app, there's actually been publication about that. One of the things, maybe I can set the record straight here, it's the model from Symphony Lab is a bit different. It's not an incubator per se. It's just a place where you can come and work on whatever it is that you're working on, and in that process, maybe you can find someone else who is interested in the kind of things you're working on, and from that you can form some kind of partnership. And from the forums that take place, whether it's visiting investor or someone who's giving a talk, then it's through that, when you start growing those relationships, then again, that could be a gateway to finding someone to invest in your idea. It's also a place where you can actually get to talk about whatever it is that you're doing. So that's the I have. There's the incubation part of it, which is the MLab. I'll talk about that now. But in terms of the person that's registering SIM cards, one of the things that we at BRCK is also, in as much as we're designing and engineering from here, doesn't mean that our outlook is confined to the Kenyan borders. So even as you work on your venture, it's good to think, outside the borders of Kenya. Yeah, it's well and good to try and partner with such a person. But at the end of the day, for example, if you're using the BRCK in 3G mode, if you move from Kenya to Tanzania, right now there's an expedition down to South Africa. Costs vary. Yeah, especially roaming is very expensive. So that could work in certain kinds of settings or certain kinds of ventures, but for us, it's not something that could work. Simply because for us, what we do is we just work on manufacturing the device, and then the cost of using a 3G SIM card, we offload that to the user. So you as the user, you're responsible for getting that SIM card and topping it up. For us, we can provide you with all the information that you need to top it up. Then I guess where such a venture would come into the picture would be, linking you to that kind of a person, especially now if you want to get a batch of units that are going to be deployed within Kenya. So that could be something that's practical.
Well, that's 2 questions.
Hey, it's okay. Just don't get into this last question.
What was the inspiration behind BRCK minus I? And lastly, you've been in the open source, contributing to open source for quite some time. But what I realized with local devs is they don't do much of open source stuff. Partly, I understand that there's no time. You can't start contributing to Mozilla or something, and you need breakfast and some food on the table. Okay. So people decide to go into working like me. So what is your advice, and what do you do to have a strong open source community?
For the longest time, dating back to about 2004, 2005, Skunkworks existed as a virtual community. The tech community has been in existence actually. This year, it's almost 10 years now. Yeah, it's going to be 10 years officially this year. It's only 4 years ago that the physical realization of Skunkworks came into being, i.e. the app. Because I have actually, that's what it transitioned. I mean, the idea was to move Skunkworks into something physical. Yeah. Back in the early days of Skunkworks, we'd actually meet in main campus in a lecture hall. We'd meet at Wananchi, meet in people's offices, meet in wherever we'd meet. So using the same analogy in terms of contributing to open source, yes, I do understand that for most of us we have basic needs struggles. That's food, shelter, and clothing. Yeah, but that should not preclude you from participating. Just don't feel that. Case in point, we subcontracted someone from what is this? Was it Latvia, somewhere in Scandinavia, to do some work for us on the BRCK. This guy is extremely poor. He wouldn't take any money for us. Whatever money he gets, he gives it to charity. Yeah. So the people who are that committed, or at least believe in some ideology. Yeah. In terms of contributing, all you need to do is just start. Some open source communities are not very forgiving. They're going to be called names, but that's how you learn. If you ever try to contribute to the Linux kernel, you see what Linus Torvalds says about some things, you can literally quit on day one because it's not very kind. Yeah, But at the end of the day, as much as he criticizes you, he leads you along. He tells you where you went wrong and what you need to do to fix it. Everyone is not, the experiences are not all the same. Yeah. So start. If you if you mess around someone, there will be someone to show you the ropes. So that's my advice. Don't wait to be proficient, to get proficiency level 10 or X for you to start. One of the things we say at BRCK is perfect is the enemy of good. Don't wait for things to be perfect so that you start. Just start. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, at BRCK. So I mean, it's figured. It's that the device actually looks like a BRCK. So I'll actually just work over again. So it just we became a bit of maybe we blended too much with the hipsters and just drop the I instead. Yeah. Just for something a unique name.
So, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did the BRCK come out of interaction on Ushahidi? Because I understand Ushahidi is people sending on Snap using the Ushahidi software. So, did that interaction actually give back?
So a lot of these ideas also, I think with any idea that you come up with, comes from constraints or experience and things that you've been working on. Yeah. So looking at Ushahidi, it was really about lowering the barrier for people to share their stories. Even in this day and age, if someone in the village, someone wants to say what's happening to them, does that mean now calling, whether it's Nation or KTN, and the narrative gets edited. They can't. Sometimes it's as if they're not allowed to share in the way they see it. So there's some sort of editorial engineering that takes place to the narrative. So Ushahidi was really about giving the power back to the people, letting them express the ideas, the views on what's around them in their own language, in the best way that is accessible to them, whether it's text, whether it's using the web platform, whether it's email, or whatever is most convenient for them. And it's from experience or from interactions with the various communities and seeing the challenges that people go through that some of these ideas started coming up. So I wouldn't say that the idea of BRCK was never totally informed by Ushahidi. I wouldn't be correct in making that statement. Yeah. So to some level, it has had an impact in how the idea got from that actually came into fruition. Being when Ushahidi started, none of us had experience in humanitarian response, in the kind of work that Red Cross does, emergency and crisis management. No, we just knew how to write software and write blogs. So, but they said, look, we could do this and let's see what happens. So sometimes it's also about just starting, taking a risk and putting your best foot forward. Yeah, I think so long as you get committed to a cause or whatever path you're on, if you're really convinced about your convictions, then just go ahead. You may be surprised what awaits you then.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you already explained. You saying the week we use the normal like you have my singer.
Yes.
And makes the connectivity easier. It doesn't cover it. What is it that's unique that makes that connectivity so simple?
So one is the ability to fail over the various connections that are available to you. So if on one time on 3G and there's Wi-Fi available, something happens to 3G, it's going to fail over to Wi-Fi. If you also had a cable plugged in and the first two fail, then you can go over to the Ethernet cable. And it just keeps on aggressively trying to find a connection in case one of those connections goes down. Again, for areas where, especially for 3G connectivity, where the signal is very poor, where the cell tower is very far, we have antennas that you can actually screw over the brick, and that should improve your reception. So depending on the environment in which you're in, if you're out in the bush, you may have to get an omnidirectional antenna with a pole and then point it towards the cell tower. We also have the brick itself is some software that runs that allows you to see a signal meter, the signal strength of the reception. And then from that, we can gauge whether it's a good time for you to, or rather, we feel to lock the antenna in that position. Yeah, let me get the device in at least. So this is a brick. It really does look like a brick. So this is a status light button. Initially, in the first iteration of the design, this also served as the power button, and it was actually in the middle. So what you'd use to see whether the brick is on or the state of the charge or whatever it's connected to also doubled up as the power button. But after the first expedition last year, actually end of October, beginning of November last year to Turkana, we realized that in this environment, because it's very dusty, as you keep on switching the brick on and off, over time dust accumulates around the button. So it increasingly becomes difficult to switch it on and off. So based on that, the power button actually came to the side, so it's over here. And then we put these flaps as well. Again, it's making it dust resistant.
Is it possible to do it?
Yeah. Okay, sure. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So actually, I could just pass it around for. So as it passes around, so I've currently switched it on. So the middle box or the middle ring shows the state of charge of the battery. So it's green, it means the battery is good. That it's between 41 and 94%. When it's fully charged, it's actually blue. As the battery level changes, then the color of that middle box will change as well. When battery is very low, it's actually going to be red. And depending on what you're connected to, the outer box, the one that you can see spinning, is going to also change the color. So right now, the brick that's moving around has a SIM card in it, an orange SIM card. So as soon as it gets a connection, because it has an inbuilt modem, so when the modem gets a connection to orange, then the outer ring is going to turn into a solid blue color. Yeah, if it's on Wi-Fi bridge mode, so if I use it to connect to the C4D lab network, it's going to turn to green. If it's on Ethernet, it's going to become purple. So once again, the outer ring, if you see it spinning, it's actually trying to connection. Available internet connection.
So how do you get those wireless?
Yeah, so for that, it's just a small matter of programming.
For the end users?
Yeah, so we handle, so the end user actually via the Brick Cloud platform has the ability to switch, to set the priority of the connections. So if 3G is your preferred connection, we should have the list. If it's Wi-Fi, we do the same thing. If it's Ethernet, we do the same thing. So based on the order that you've set, then the Brick will always try and will always obey that order.
So like wireless that use password.
Yeah, so you can configure. You can bridge to that, like you can bridge to this wireless network, and then those configurations are going to be stored in the brick. So every time you switch it on, it's going to try and find this wireless network. If it finds it, it's going to latch onto it and connect to it.
So you need to set up using it.
Yes, so for this, because the brick advertises a wireless network, so you connect to that wireless network, and that gives you access to it gives you access to there's a local configuration page that sits on the brick for cases where you really need to troubleshoot the device. But for the most part, it's an internet managed device. So this allows you to manage it from everywhere, from anywhere basically you are in the world. So again, it's very ideal for cases where you need to deploy this in a very remote location, and you can periodically check on it. If something seems to be wrong, you can always notify the people on the other end whether they need to charge it or they need to do something else to get it moving. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about regulation. They have been done in the United States, BRCK been done in China, and US is in India. Who regulates? Is it CARES? Is it Chinese laws? Is it US laws?
So actually, BRCK is incorporated in the US, and the Kenya operation is a subsidiary, though everyone is situated here. So from a regulation perspective, there's aspect of this carry locally. So we also have to sit down with carry, we explain to them what it is that you're doing for accountability purposes. Explain to them what device it is, what's in that device, and then just get clearance from carrier as well. And because it's a communications device, there's something called FCC certification in the US. So you need to go for testing, just for emissions and a couple of other things. Like EMI emissions and that kind of thing. And also CE certification. CE certification is the one for Europe. FCC is for the US. Because we've had customers in both of these markets. So again, there's that other part of the enterprise in terms of logistics and operations. So here we haven't gone to the cap step yet. And we're constantly chatting with just different regulators and seeing what it is that we need to do to actually sell here. So as part of even opening a store here, there's some things that we need to go through. But for the most part, for any goods that are coming into the country, the first stop is always carry.
So is it easier to set up incorporation in the US?
Yeah, it took a day. Yeah. So again, the very many challenges in running a business here. I believe I'm speaking to very many people. So sometimes just getting an incorporation certificate, depending on the kind of lawyer you're using, it can take up to 5 weeks. And also depending on who's the director of the company, it could take 1 day. So so we have those kinds of challenges as well. And then some of our regulations read the act, it says this, but you're not aware of something that was gazetted 3 weeks ago that actually manifests some of these things. So we do have some of those struggles to work out.
Finally, the second question, according to you, maybe what's the most preferred? You said you're doing PCB, but what would be your preferred in terms of price or manufacturing between United States, Europe, and China?
Right now, it's very difficult to compete with China, just because of economies of scale. So actually, with a contract manufacturer, what happens is, at some point, when you get past a certain point in your volume, you get to transition to somewhere like China, where you can actually take advantage of economies of scale. China right now they have the facilities, they have the personnel, they have the skill to do it. And that's where we're falling behind. Because for most of this electronics you play with, whether it's an iPhone or an Android phone, some of those things actually assembled by hand. Yeah. So we will get there, but we need to work very hard. We need to start now. Actually, we need to start it yesterday. So at the end of the day, preferred long term, preferred assuming everything remains constant, will be challenging. Pretty difficult to justify not past a certain scale, not going east.
This okay, it's supported that you have very good relationship with China, yeah? That's how I had it, we were facing this. So I'm thinking that with this good relationship we're going to say, these guys we should be able to they should be able to tell us, guys, by then we can set up an industry here, we can do some of the stuff here, and do what you can do in China, but no one ever says something like that. I don't know if we ask if we can do that. Because all I know, what they want to do is just to build for us the roads, they get driven, and so I don't know if because China actually yes, so leverage on them in terms of either a good partnership where it's easy to send the design and they can plan quickly, they can be clear that they can very quickly and stuff like that. Or they can set a shop here that can help our local guys. Though I saw another demand is low, but they need some kind of some discussions around that. But I don't know
Like right now, look at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. For the most part, it just exists as an organization. Whether they actually do anything is up for debate. So you also look at industry relations. Even if you're competing, but do you at least see eye to eye on some issues that affect you collectively? Even right now, as you guys run your startups, it's good at least to have common understanding or share some values that at the end of the day, if you push this agenda, it benefits everyone. For me, my take is that self-interests, at least in our country, tend to take priority over collective good. It's okay to have self-interests, but most of the time, it's always about self-interest. It's not about collective good. So you find lobbying is very weak. Yeah. Take Silicon Valley for example. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, they're all competing on some extent, yeah, and aggressively, yeah. But all these people have, a common lobbying organization that is always out to protect the industry's interests, yeah. So, and you see that's we can't say that's an American thing, yeah, that's a Western thing. It's some of those ideas or some of those models that we also need to borrow and localize them here. So what does lobbying look like as far as the Kenyan market is concerned? And it's not like people haven't tried. Again, my good friend Travis is sitting there. You can tell you, what we've gone through. Just trying to get people to see eye to eye. And people say, look, yeah, we're going to write a concept paper. And as soon as that kind of talk begins, then you may not went with the desired outcome. Yeah. So again, even as entrepreneurs, it's for us to start building those networks. With each other. That's what I could say.
Well, lastly, these are comments. I think you guys have done a great thing. I think when people see Great now, they believe that actually we can do these things here. It's a good, many people are looking at you and are looking at maybe this upcoming guy to be coming behind us. We'll have something to look at.
Yeah, thanks. And the other thing is also own your narrative. So if you're doing something, be the one to tell the story. If you let other people tell the story on your behalf, you may just get left out of your own narrative. So it's good also to own the narrative. Don't be shy about what you're working on. Speak about it, and yes, you're bound to make a few wrong turns here and there. But don't be afraid. You'll be the first one to do it. There's a tendency to be there's a very closet culture here about what you're working on. Because you feel so-and-so is still my idea. If you have an idea, I can assure you today for free, you're not the first person to have it. Yeah. Chances are that there are 10,000 other people across the world, across this country that have had the same idea. At the end of the day, it's execution. It's all about execution. How do you move to the market? How do you grow the business? It's all about execution. Yeah, you look at look at Instagram vis-a-vis Flickr. It's more or less the same thing. Flickr was way ahead of everyone else, way ahead in terms of photo sharing. But Instagram came, was acquired for a good amount of money. Flickr is still there. Yahoo is still struggling. So really focus on execution. Be agile and be very tenacious about your reputation, about your business, about your venture. All right.
Okay, be agile, execute, and be tenacious. Okay, you need that insurance. But thanks, Emanuel. It was an exciting session.
All right.
So would you like to see Emanuel once more? The next year session. You can give a lot of applause. Thank you so much, Emanuel, for coming.
Okay. All right.
Facilitate our forum today. Okay. So, guys, we are online. So this video will be available 30 minutes at the end of this session. So you can download and share with your friends as you wish. Thank you so much.
Asante sana.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Pleasure.